Appendices 1. You're late.
A critic is never late, Christopher Garner. Nor does he cater to the opinions of the masses. He says precisely what he means to.
Don't be late again.
Oh.
Right, now we're into the review. I can finally take that wig off and this stupid beard. That is itchy.
Do you want to give the intro now?
Yeah. Right. Hello. We're Tom and Chris, and we're those film guys.
And welcome to our Lord of the Rings, an unexpected marathon. Today we're beginning with the first in the trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yep. The was it 2001?
2001.
2001 Peter Jackson film. To be quite honest, I think we need to start where it starts, with the books. Just pass briefly over the books.
What do we say about the books?
Crap.
We're not big fans of the books. For me, I think Tolkien has good ideas, but I don't think he's that good in putting those ideas onto page.
Too
paper.
padded.
Yeah.
It's far too padded out, and I think what the films do really well is take all the bits that aren't necessary from the books and just throw them out. Which is
I apologise, my hair is just on there.
which is what the films do really well.
Yeah.
It really is an emotional. What Peter Jackson does, it transports you to this world, to Middle Earth. I mean, it seems very real. It seems lived in. Everything about it seems grounded. Like there's no Bombadil, which I absolutely hated.
Thank God, that's one thing that the extended cut didn't put back in, was Tom Bombadil.
Which is a good thing.
I think even fans of the book can acknowledge that Tom Bombadil was an all-time low for the novels.
Fans of the book tend to love everything that Tolkien ever writes, and he's not a very good writer,
No.
let's put it that way. But he does have some good ideas, but the opposite of what George Lucas is. No good ideas, except Star Wars, I suppose.
Yeah. So, shall we get into the films then?
Yes. Where do we begin with the Fellowship? Where to start? Because I mean, there is so much you can talk about.
Where do we begin with Lord of the Rings in general? I mean, it's so vast and epic. Well, I think we'll start off what we usually do with our contained thoughts if we can. And apologies right now because I will probably be repeating myself on a lot of areas on this film, certainly all of the films. To me, Lord of the Rings is my favourite film series of all time. I see them all as one film. Just everything, acting, story, special effects, emotion, you've got everything in these films, and it's everything you want in a film, and it's done completely to the tenfold.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I mean, the thing is, people I've met and have said that it's just people walking from one location to the other. It kind of is, but it's more drawn out, and there's a lot more to the story than just people walking to a location. Because one of my old tutors said that he didn't like it because he doesn't like fantasy. If you don't like fantasy, then that's fine.
Yeah, that's fair enough. If it's not your kind of genre, then
No.
you can't force that.
But I have to admit, the Fellowship of the Ring is every element of every film has its good points, and some good points are different than others, but it all makes for like essentially a perfect trilogy.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you, it's very hard to pick. If I had to pick my favourite one of the trilogy, if I had to, I would probably go with Fellowship, because the other two are more self-contained to an area, whereas Fellowship seems to stretch to a great many locations.
Yeah.
And I think certainly towards the third half's action scenes are probably some of the best you will ever see in cinema at all. And
it has the best death scene in cinema ever. I'm putting it out there. That is fantastic. That death scene at the end. So we're just sort of jumping around really, but I think we should get this more focused.
Let's do it.
On your favourite thing about the Fellowship of the Ring. Your favourite thing about it.
Jesus Christ, where do I begin? My favourite thing would probably have to be. This is assuming that you've seen The Lord of the Rings. If you haven't, just go and watch all three.
Spoilers.
Now. We're going into spoiler territory.
As usual.
The entire sequence, once the Fellowship has set out to destroy the ring, and they're in Moria, and you have this epic isn't even a good enough word for it. They have a fight with a troll. Orcs. Yep. Straight after that, get chased by goblins. The wizard Gandalf faces off against a fiery demon, the Balrog.
Yeah.
And it's just boom, 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 and it's like some of the best stuff you will ever see on screen ever. It's just, even back then, that was so epic to me when I was 8 years old.
What they say in the extended cuts in the documentaries, they say that sequence literally is one sentence on the page.
Yeah.
They run down some stairs and cross the bridge. That's it. That's literally what Peter Jackson said he wrote. But they've drawn it out into a very, very intense fight sequence, and it's probably one of the best in the film.
That's it. Now we always agree with and support the use of practical effects, and The Lord of the Rings is a big CGI blockbuster. It does have a lot of CGI in places, but I will always argue to people who say that CGI can be too much. This is always the example I give to show that it can be done well. Yeah. And I think that The Lord of the Rings CGI is used sparingly enough so that you still have the core practical mechanic and you have the emotions of the characters, but you also then have the CGI which boosts the epic scale of the entire film. And that carries over into all three, really.
Yeah, and I think the best thing about it is the practical effects. I mean, they did use a lot of miniatures, and that's commended. I mean, at the time they didn't really have the technology, I don't think, to really, because I mean CGI now just looks a bit crap, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But they had to use like different techniques, like forced perspectives and things to make people seem bigger and smaller, and it felt like they were thinking like, okay, we don't have the technology here to make people like really tiny, so we've got to think outside the box. What can we do? Okay, let's move this here and that there, and have the camera here and have the two actors like lined up like that.
And it works really well, even still to this day, you know. And we've heard like some stories about Ian McKellen breaking down on the set for The Hobbit because they didn't use stuff like that for The Hobbit. They used generic old CGI, and we haven't seen the film yet, but I mean it's a sad.
That does put a bit of a downer on it.
Because the acting, obviously, if you've seen the Star Wars prequels, you will know that it just doesn't work with the actors. Like, they're not reacting to real things. They don't give a real performance.
Yeah, it is very hard to act with something that isn't there. Like, and believe me, I've done it. Where and just the fact that you're there with somebody, acting alongside someone, brings out a better performance. And everybody gives 100% into it. One thing I did find cheesy though, and this is a cheesy moment for me, which sort of doesn't ruin the film, but I just think could have done without that. Well, it could have and could you sort of where they're all. It's that shot where every single one of them climbs up onto the right and does a pose and then walks off.
The trailer shot.
Yeah, the trailer shot. That bit to me is very cheesy as hell.
I love that part. It's just it's the fellowship together. It's the namesake of the film. It has to showcase this fellowship.
I know, but it just comes across as a bit like cliche and quite cheesy to me.
Cliched but done well, you know. What else can we say about this film? Do you want to?
Well, my favourite bit in the film has to be that whole Ammon Hen fight scene at the very end, and subsequently after that with the breaking of the fellowship. That last sequence.
What was about the last half hour of the film? Last 20 minutes?
It's about 10-15 minutes, I reckon. But that has the single best death in cinema ever. I'm putting it out there now. That is my favourite death in cinema history. Boromir's death scene.
Sean Bean had to die at the end.
And Sean Bean dies in everything. And you're even wearing a shirt or something he dies in. Game of Thrones.
It's like just the typical Sean Bean trope now. He has to die in every single thing he features in.
Yeah.
Do you think he just picks the script? Like, is my character dying at the end? Yep, sure. I'll act in that part.
I don't know, but he was probably my favourite character out of the film.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It's a real shame to see a character. Obviously, it's like proper emotion. Like, you genuinely feel bad when this character dies.
Yeah.
Because he is probably the one out of the entire Fellowship, certainly in the first film, that goes through the biggest character journey. Yeah. Because he is tormented and traumatised by this ring, and we find out later in Two Towers and Return of the King that he was doing this for his country, for Gondor, and for his father.
And that's a whole dynamic I like. That he's even though he's not in it for particularly very long, he goes on what I consider the biggest character arc of the whole film, where he starts off as sort of, he's a likeable guy, but he just perhaps is too narrow-minded to the fact that he can use the ring against Sauron, and it's a human flaw. He overcomes that flaw and becomes a hero at the end of it. A tragic hero, I might add, because he takes about 3 arrows and still fights.
Gets up, yeah.
And that is my favourite part. The entire film.
Now, that's one thing that I think speaks volumes for the Lord of the Rings is the ensemble cast.
Oh yeah.
Everyone, you can tell even in the filming stage they all got on with each other, and that obviously carries on over into all their characters. This Fellowship, I can't fault a single performance in this film, whether it be minor or major. Even actors that you see in other films, like I will always bring up Orlando Bloom. I don't think he's a very good actor, but in Lord of the Rings, he works. I think he's really good in Lord of the Rings. And it's actors like that who you'll see in some things and think, they're not great, or I haven't really seen them in much. In this, the casting director, I commend the casting director tremendous amounts for this film.
Orlando Bloom's one of the guys that you think, he just literally is a wet blanket on screen all the time, every film he's in. And it's quite, because he doesn't really portray that much emotion, but here it's as though he's been given that definitive role. It's as though he's been given that role that will define his acting career. Because he's in the new Hobbit. He's in the Hobbit. We haven't seen that, but that's what we're leading up to. But yeah, he was actually the surprise in this film for me. After I've seen him in stuff like Pirates of the Caribbean, where he's just atrocious, and Kingdom of Heaven, and a really good, the director's cut is the better version and the definitive version of the film, and but he's a bit wooden in that. But he's a real surprise, a real hit, I think, and he does loads of cool stuff.
Yeah,
as well. They give him all the cool stuff
in every single one of these films, and we'll talk about his epic moment in this film, shall we? Because that's a thing that carries on in all three gets more and more ramped up through the film. So the most badass Legolas moment in this film is probably where he takes down the cave troll.
Yeah. He jumps
single-handedly takes down a cave troll.
Single-handedly. Jumps on a troll's head and fires an arrow into its skull and jumps off it and fires another arrow. It's just, hey, you got to have stuff like that in the film. And people say, like, I think you said they said stuff about 2000 when he does the whole skateboarding down the stairs thing. You know, you have to have, it's comic relief, it's fun, it's exciting. Then after that, it breaks up the seriousness of the piece to the point where you go, oh, that was funny. Now it's back to the action.
It strikes a good balance, I think, between that, because in most battle films, it either picks one or the other. It's either comic battle scenes or it's all serious. And I think Lord of the Rings still manages to keep the gravitas of the situation in hand and the emotion. Balances that well, but it also has these epic little set pieces sprinkled throughout, which I think works to the film.
Yeah. Nice.
So, for those of you who haven't seen The Lord of the Rings, do you think we should cover what it's basically about a little bit to give them?
It's okay. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Pause it and just go watch.
Go out, buy the extended cut right now.
The Blu-ray extended cuts.
Yeah.
Because you've got to have those. But essentially, the story is that Frodo Baggins inherits his a ring off the ring Chris is wearing. Not that actual ring.
Will I go invisible?
No. But he inherits a ring off his of Bilbo Baggins, who he lived with in Bag End, and then which sets in motion a series of events that Gandalf finds out that it's the Ring of Power created by Sauron, the Deceiver, who forged it, and Mordor. So he has to take Frodo to Rivendell to decide what to do with it. He gathers a company of 9, heads out, and shit happens.
And the only way to destroy this evil ring, which is linked with this evil sorcerer, is to throw it back into the fiery volcano from
fiery chasm from whence it came.
Indeed. And I've heard that many of my friends say that the films are completely padded. Like, each film is about 3 to 3.5 hour long. I think the final one, Return of the King, is about 4 hours.
Well, I think that in the extended cut, the Fellowship's actually 3.5 hours extended. So I think the Two Towers must be 3.25.
Yeah,
and then it's 4. But yeah, they're not. Hey, you can't get more padded than the book. Let's be honest. They cut a lot of stuff out and made it enjoy. They gave a lot of character as well in there, which was lacking. Because I mean,
the books just seemed to follow the event, and that was it. Whereas the films follow the events, but also add character into every single scene.
And I think I know I say Boromir is my favourite character. He goes on the biggest arc, but I think essentially all the characters are well rounded and developed, and I think the most developed of them is Samwise Gamgee. I think he comes across as a real as a genuine friend who's willing to sort of go to great lengths to help his friend Frodo out, and that's commendable. You really sympathise with him when stuff doesn't go particularly well, and
you really realise that Frodo would have literally gotten nowhere if it hadn't been for Sam.
Yeah.
Sam is like his rock. He keeps him grounded and focused on this task.
Yeah.
Because the ring slowly corrupts the person who's wearing it. But so Sam keeps him on this quest, and because Fellowship of the Ring shows this fellowship helping Frodo on his way to Mordor, but by the end of the film all of them are broken up.
Yeah.
And so it is just, for the rest of the 2 films, it's Frodo and Sam on this quest. Well, not just. those two, but we'll get into that with our Two Towers review. But at the end of this thing, you really think Sam is the only thing that will keep him going.
Yeah, which really is a testament to how well written the film is. Fran Walsh, Philippa Bowen, and Peter Jackson wrote a fantastic script that really sets the epicness of the fantasy up, and you know, it's just okay. There are some little niggles I think, like for example that cheesy bit I mentioned.
It's one scene. It's like 10 seconds. It's really difficult to nitpick in this film. We're really clutching at straws.
I'm scraping the barrel. What else? That's literally all I can think of at this particular moment. I'll think of something after and go, I'll write it down.
We'll add it back in. But me, I honestly can't think of anything I dislike in this film. Truly, I think these films are perfect. I don't think anything else could have been done to them to make them better. They are my favourite films of all time, and Fellowship of the Ring came out 11 years ago when I was 8, and I haven't seen anything before or after that has come anywhere close to how great this film is. That's my opinion, but
it's certainly one of the best sword and sorcery films out there.
Oh, definitely.
Probably the best fantasy film you'll see. Actually, I think Hulk the Slayer, Conan the Barbarian, Willow.
Not many people remember Willow. I remember Willow.
Hulk the Slayer. Hey, even your
The Hunter from the Future
is better than Lord of the Rings. I'm kidding.
So if you're serious, get the hell out of here now. Well, to be fair, Lord of the Rings didn't have anyone hang gliding in on a gigantic bat into a cave.
No,
maybe that should have been one of the Legolas moments.
Yes. He glides in on one of the eagles.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard to nitpick this, and I really can't find much fault with it. And just, yeah, I'm speechless to how grand on scale it is.
What the film does well is introducing you to this fictitious world with all of these characters. You have absolutely loads of characters in this film.
Yeah.
And what the film does well is it takes you on this journey as a viewer. It takes you to all of these places you've never seen before, with these characters, these creatures you've never seen before. And it puts you right in there, and aided by Howard Shore's phenomenal score.
That is
so
fantastic. Good. I got the complete collections at home, and it is very, 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 very good.
And all you have to do is just listen to this music, and if you've seen the films, you can recall the scene perfectly next to the music.
Yeah.
And I think that's testament to Howard Shore's score.
He is literally probably one of the greatest composers of his time. Like, in terms of film, I think he's rivaled only by Thomas Newman. That was it. Yeah. I think he's only rivaled by him. But he seems to understand what pieces of music need to accompany the emotion of the scene and the grand scale of events in the film. That's that, and you need to pick a composer like that. I mean, music and film should balance. Music should enhance your film experience, your emotional attachment to it, which is a complaint I have of Quentin Tarantino, who doesn't know how to blend that musical score or original musical score into his films. But your composer should really understand where you want to go with the film, and really strike out to sort of make it go that extra mile to make it bigger.
Absolutely. And when we saw the Man of Steel teaser trailer, it plays a song in it from Lord of the Rings when spoiler, Gandalf dies.
Yeah.
And although that song works, man, I can't get Lord of the Rings out of my head.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
With that scene, with that music,
it is honestly probably. See, I never went to see. I went to see Two Towers and Return of the King, and I never saw Fellowship in the cinema, and I wish I had.
I was 8 years old when I went to see Fellowship at the cinema, and it was probably the longest film that I'd seen at that point. So I remember coming out thinking, oh, that was too long. There was only good action at the end. But after it came out on video and I rewatched it, that was when I first grasped how good that film was. So probably when I was about 9, I really appreciated Lord of the Rings, and then obviously 2000 Return of the King came out, and they were some of the best cinematic experiences of my life.
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, I'm pretty much speechless.
Me too, and I think we're going to carry on being speechless for the next two, because we're going to we'll try and keep it noticeably different between the next two, but yeah, Fellowship of the Ring. Probably my favourite of the three, if I had to choose, but they're all good in their own way.
Yeah. So, why don't you join us again for the second part of our Lord of the Rings movie marathon, which will be about the Two Towers.
We will not abandon the 2000 Return of the King's review. Not while we have strength left. With all that can be spared behind. Let's review some films.